Next would be Mr. Mike Cooper, CEO report of Williams Hospital.
Good morning, Commissioners.
Morning.
I wanted to first update you. A couple meetings ago, I spoke about where the Medicaid program was in the state and what the governor had proposed versus what the Senate and House had. It was a pretty deep cut to the Medicaid program statewide, and it was a fairly political cut. In other words, the cuts weren't across the board. They were geared towards certain hospitals and certain types of hospitals and providers. For instance, TMH got hit by about a $7 million cut. The hospital in Perry, I think, was about $400,000. We ended up about $140,000, $150,000 in cuts for next fiscal year. So, as I mentioned previously, Florida ranked 49th, 50th, or 51 in Medicaid spending per capita in 3 different categories: for women, for children, and overall. And we just took one of the massive cuts that I've seen. It's pretty sad. So I just wanted to pass that along. On the positive side, the federal government's allocation to the state for LIP funding more than overcame that for us. I don't know what everybody else's allotment was, but the LIP funding will more than overcome what the cut in Medicaid was. So the Fed stepped up a little bit, the state really didn't. So the political horizon right now, we don't expect any additional cuts in the upcoming legislation, but that's all on Medicaid. I did want to go over the financials for April with you and just mention a couple things. On your income statement, and you've heard me say this before, but the income statement is not the most powerful document that we have financially. You can see that for April we had about almost a $90,000 positive bottom line, and year to date we're $190,000 positive bottom line. Now, when I say it's not the most effective tool that we have, the reason I say that is if you'll go up to it's the second set of numbers under deductions from revenue, the last one, which is LIP and DISH. If you'll see the first 2 months of the year, we showed a negative $100,000 in those categories. That's actually a positive number for the bottom line. It's a deduction from the deductions. So that's a positive number to our bottom line. We were accruing for the LIP program because we were supposed to get about $1.2 million. Then in December, when things kind of went up in the air and we didn't know what was going on with LIP, if we were getting LIP, when we were getting it, or how much we were getting, couldn't accrue anything. So that's where you see all those blank months. And then in March, they send all of us. They send all the money all at one time. And so you see a huge number that goes right there in March. So the number in April, the 109,000, you're likely to see that throughout the end of this fiscal year, because even though we recognized the cash in March, we didn't recognize the revenue in March. It's being accrued. So I just wanted to point that out. On the balance sheet side, I would just point out once again, if you look under liabilities, or current liabilities and long-term liabilities, you'll see that to TMH and to the Healthcare Trust Fund, a substantial payment was made in April to both of those, and that currently we're sitting at 35 days cash on hand and still a positive 2.4 current ratio. Any questions on the financials? All right. The next thing on my agenda is the recent visit by CHC. I know all of you got to meet with a representative from CHC. I hope those went well for you guys. In my exit meeting with Jim Coleman, he was happy with the way those meetings went. So I just wanted to mention that, number one, I was very impressed by, and I've been through a couple of these over the years, but I was very impressed by not only the amount of data that CHC went through prior to coming on site, but the type of data they went through tells me that they know what they're doing, they know what to look for, and that I think we've got a good partner if we can make this work. They last week were here Tuesday. One person was here Tuesday. The rest of them were here on Wednesday and Thursday, leaving on Friday. They brought a total of 9 people, covering everything: human resources, administration, finances, IT, the revenue cycle, materials management, 2 clinical people, one over just specifically nursing, and one over like infection control and risk management, quality types of things. We also are doing by phone. We had discussions with their perioperative staff, and also their clinical or their clinic professionals. So it was an intensive week last week. They talked with numerous people. From my exit with Jim last Thursday night, he was complimentary on where we're at now, particularly the trending on collections and stuff like that. However, the level of resources that CHC currently has, they definitely see some opportunities for us to improve the bottom line. Specifically, they are very well positioned in the IT field, and generally their hospitals get hundreds of thousands of dollars from IT grants. They're very good at getting that. I'm not familiar with it personally. But so they expected that they could get some money there. Even given the increase in our collections, they believe there's a little bit more in there from the revenue cycle piece. Specifically, we're collecting better, but what they think we can do better at is the time between discharge when the patient leaves and the time our bill actually goes out the door. Right now, we're averaging about 5 to 5.5 days, and they seem to think we can get that down to 2.5 to 3 days. So that generates more quicker cash. And then the big thing, the biggest thing was our supply chain. They have an entire department dedicated to how well you are utilizing your group purchasing contract. And they think there's hundreds of thousands of dollars in that for us as well, because right now we have a penetration in that contract of about, I'm just going to say 50%. Their organizational wide standard is at least 75%. The last hospital I was at, we were at over 90%. So a lot of that comes from the GPO. The GPO should be driving that number. Unfortunately, they haven't been. So they think there's a bunch of money there. For the hospital and the hospital's operations, I think the biggest thing that they was evident during their visit was the amount of metrics that they are able to generate on a monthly basis. Right now, for me to find a problem, research a problem, fix a problem, I have to have some kind of inclination that there is a problem. Then I have to go dig the data up myself, put it in an Excel spreadsheet, and fix it. They give me that data on a trending report every single month. I can look at one report, I can tell you what's going right, what's going wrong, red light, green light, yellow light, which makes my job a lot easier, just to figure out where things are going wrong. So they do bring a lot of resources, I will just say that, more so than the other company we were looking at. I think that Jim, when he met with each of you, gave you the timeline that they're looking at, but just in case, Jim expects all of those 9 people, plus the 2 from the phone, to have him a draft report within 2 weeks, which would be the end of next week. That following week, he will collate all those reports, and then from that, he should have a pretty good idea of what they're willing to do. And at that point, he will be in contact with Mark O'Brien, hopefully get back to you guys very early in July. Okay. Any questions on anything else with CHC?
Mr. Chairman, I have a question. And I don't mean this to be contrary, but I just want to clarify kind of where we're going.
Okay.
I understood the other day when I met with Mr. Jim, CHC is doing an assessment for us.
Mm-hmm.
So in my mind, we as a board, and I'm not trying to speak for everybody, but we're here together, have not made up our mind what company we're going with. We're waiting upon the assessment.
Right.
And from some of the things that have been said this morning, I just want to clarify, and so that the general public knows that this isn't pigeonholed and this is how it's going to be. We're in the assessment process.
Correct.
Because there were questions I had the other day that I made very clear to him were not questions for this present time. They were questions for when we get the assessment. I just wanted to add that in the discussion this morning.
Mr. Chairman, I agree with Commissioner Jones. And one thing I would like to do, and I may have overlooked it, Mr. Cooper, where is the financials for the ambulance and the 2 clinics at? I don't see it on here nowhere.
Commissioner, I don't have them with me. I can send them to you.
If you don't mind, send a
Okay.
copy to the commissioners so they'll know how
Okay.
the
Yes,
clinics
please.
and the ambulances are operating, because that needs, we've asked many
Yeah.
times for it to be broke out.
It usually is broke out, but I
Yeah.
don't know why it isn't
Yeah.
this month.
So if you can, so I can see how the clinics and the ambulances operate, and I sure would appreciate it.
Okay. I'm glad you mentioned that, because that was one of the other big things that came out of their assessment last week, was that those clinics, why aren't they RHCs? They need to be RHCs, and I explained to them that, we've been working on it for 2 years. It's sitting at the state. The state, it's all in their hands at this point. Moving on, speaking of EMS, I wanted to let you know that we'll be equipping the ambulances with cameras that are also connected to the memory or one of the cards in the ambulance that puts speeds on the video so I can look at it real time. The reason for that is going back to the accident we had last year. Obviously, that one was very well witnessed. However, had it not been witnessed, we would at least have a video so we can assign fault. Additionally, I've received an inordinate number of complaints from citizens complaining about certain driving habits. And the thing is, I don't have any way to either affirm or argue, and I would like to be able to know whether our staff is doing what they're supposed to be doing or not. So it's really a risk management tool, and the company we're looking at actually equips all the ambulances in Chicago. They're the #1 company in the world. So anyway, just wanted to inform you of that, and that's pretty much all of the news I have for you today.
Mr. Chairman, just one more comment. I heard there was some rumblings about people making comments about the speed that the drivers was going. I've never witnessed them like that. There may have been, but I know I never have. And I can tell you this: if I call for an ambulance, I want them to get in high gear to come get me, because I mean that's what they're there for. They're emergency medical services, and when you make that call for them, they need to be there pronto like that.
I don't disagree.
Yeah.
There's a point where it becomes dangerous, and I just want to be able to say, yes, they were doing what they were supposed to be doing, or no, they weren't.
Yeah, yeah. And like I said, I just like everybody in this county, we travel the county-wide, adjacent counties, you know. I've never seen them, or never saw them drive out of whack, you know, especially if Travis is on there. But anyway, thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Any other comments for the board from Mr. Cooper?
Yeah, you know, a little history about this man. We've been dealing with this hospital. We've been dealing with getting it a hospital and getting it running right for the last 10 years. We promised the people a hospital 10 years ago. And you know, when is it going? When is the hospital coming? I mean, you get up there and I was on the paper, if you read them paper, what we voted on, with everybody in Franklin County voted, that was eligible, or who wanted to, and they passed it a high number. And it's time to do what you told the people. You want to do part of what we told the people, don't want to do the other part. That's not right. But if you're going to do it right. Can't keep one promise and don't do the other. I can't.
Any other comments from board members? Thank you, Mr. Cooper, for coming in. Next will be Mr. John Collins, AVCON. Please come forward, state your name for the record.
Good morning, Commissioners. My name is John Collins with AVCON. Back on May 2nd, we received bids for the airfield drainage improvements project at the airport, and we received 5 bids. And the lowest bidder is BKW Incorporated, and they do appear to be a qualified contractor to do this type of work. And we called their references. We actually called some additional references that people we know that who have worked with BKW, and all the references came back positive about their experiences they've had with BKW. And so I provided a recommendation of award dated May 25th to award this project to BKW. So I'm here this morning to request approval to award the construction contract to BKW Incorporated in the amount of $1,588,838.99. And this project is 100% funded by the FDOT.
So
Where they at?
They have an office in Bluntstown, about an hour and a half, 2 hours away.
So move.
The board remembers, you guys expressed some concern because if you look at the calculations right there, they were way lower than everybody else, but John is saying they did their
They
due
verified
diligence to verify that they're, you know.
Check them out good.
I did. I reviewed their bid tabulation with them, went through just the different numbers, and they were able to explain every single one of them. So I don't, nothing seems fishy at this point.
Well, real quickly, one thing I like is you got three major factors here why they were able to be the low bidder. And
Yes,
the
sir.
number one in my mind is the majority of the work being self-performed.
Yes, correct.
We've done several airport projects, and when they're subcontracted out, and the actual contractor that's being awarded the bid doesn't do the work, then it's hard to come back and say, hey, you messed up, or you need to straighten this up. Well, we
Right.
subbed that part out. Well, I really like number one, and them doing the majority of the work being self-performed, I like that.
Yes, sir. I agree.
I don't really like awarding a contract to somebody that then turns around and awards the contract to somebody else and goes down to 2 or 3 tiers later till you get down to somebody that's actually doing the work. Because what happens there is the subcontractor is inferior performing because he's being paid, X amount of dollars to do, and he just skims by the best way he can. So I like the idea of awarding a contract to somebody that's actually going to do the work.
Right.
And actually be held accountable for doing the work.
Yes, sir.
So I really like that, and it is a pleasure to board on this. We had a motion by Commissioner Lockie, I'm sorry. Do we have a second?
Second.
Second by Commissioner Sanders. Any further discussion?
That's a good one. Well, since you put it that way, I understand it though. All you're doing is, like you said, if they gonna do 90% of the work, all them other people doing was getting money just to hire somebody.
They were being a general contractor.
Yeah, they
They
were
won't
being a
actually
general
do anything, which adds to the cost.
Yeah,
Right.
probably 2 or 3, like you said, 2 or 3 down the line, they getting paid.
Yeah. Was there another board member had a comment?
I did, but he answered my,
Okay.
yeah. Thank you.
There being no further comments, all those in favor? Oh, we need a second. We had a second by Commissioner Sanders. Oh, you had a comment?
I thought we were voting.
Okay. All those in favor? All opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you.
Thank you for coming in today.